what you're building, why you're building it, how it affects the youth sports
But it
market.
is a scheduling platform that's uniquely designed and built
You're
for
trying
parents.
to do is reduce that stress. One part of what you're doing is trying to reduce that stress for families and for busy sport
And
families.
so what we do uniquely within Orgo is so it is an opportunity lane for sure that we are building a piece of technology that will augment the
Youth Sports Insider, where passion meets opportunity.
Welcome to another episode of Youth Sports Insider. I am your host, Bill Flitter. Today we have Zoya Lehrer from Orgo. Welcome to the show, Zoya.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I was fascinated by what you were doing with the app. It took me a minute to kind of fully appreciate it and understand, and I'm sure you probably are uh, probably used to hearing that a little bit. Why don't you start off though, and we're going to dive into kind of what you're building, why you're building it, how it affects the youth sports market. So why don't you start with a bit of background and catch us up to date of where you are today, and we'll dive in.
Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity. So Orgo, ORGO, stands for Organization on the Go. And I'll kind of back you into a little bit of history, but it is a scheduling platform that's uniquely designed and built for parents, sports parents like myself. I've got three athletes, ages 14, 10, and 7, all girls. So, that's a whole other element to that. We are swimmers. We do club soccer, club lacrosse. It's year round. I don't have to tell you, that's kind of the world that we live in today. A
Yeah.
little bit of field hockey, a little bit of track, a little acro. So we pepper all of that in. Multi-sport, multiple athletes in the home is kind of the opportunity or the problem set that I was dealing with when it comes to logistics of youth sports. And so the scheduling, the figuring out of who's going where, who's on what deck, who's being driven to, who's being picked up from, where do the conflicts lie, that became a daily exercise. Forget about like doing the parent T minus calculations in our minds as far as like
Right.
who's got to go where, what time we're leaving. But even as far as like the conflicts and the overlaps, and with three kids, again, the third one will break you, is really a matrix complicated exercise that we went through daily. Every weekend was just really arduous trying to figure out what even a day entails and who's all where. And then doing so for the foreseeable 15 years more that, I then had in this journey just seemed untenable. So I left my career of 20 years in financial services and banking, and always within a tech capacity is my background, to pursue essentially solving this problem and building a solution that would better service the needs of my home, realizing that I'm not special, I'm not unique, I'm not doing anything different than the majority of families, certainly within my community and kind of peers and nationwide that we observe today. And so that's kind of the problem set that we went after, logistics of youth sports, but from the point of view of the parent, not built for leagues, coaches, and managers, specifically for the parents that are in the home, collaborating with one another, their caregivers, and even their athletes, their young kids in the home as well, working together, make sure that they've got a system to manage through those logistics of everyday life.
Well, and let's take a layer deeper on that. Kind of the back of the envelope numbers I was crunching this morning. An average sport parent spends 10 hours in and around the sport. Okay, that's 10 hours a week. That's 10 hours a week per child. Now, when we had our first discussion about what you guys are doing, what you just kind of take for granted is the pre and post, the drive time, the prep time that's involved. And back of the envelope numbers for me came to about 18 to 20 hours per week of time spending prepping, traveling to and from
Mhm.
practices and or tournaments, and then of course at a tournament on a weekend, right? So now you times that by, and there's probably some efficiencies in there, right? But two or three kids, that becomes a full-time job just managing the logistics. So how you obviously saw the need. This is not a small problem, but help us understand the scale of the problem. question number one. Question number two, and maybe this kind of is, why can't I just use Google Calendar?
Yeah, absolutely. The first problem is, and again, it's more of an opportunity too, because if you solve it for me, you'll help 30
Right.
million US families alone. And we're both in US and Canada, so that's obviously only exponentially growing in terms of that potential reach. But the problem set is universal. The way that we traverse space and time, as is defined within our traditional calendars, is flawed. It's fundamentally flawed. It's untrue. Because as an event, call it soccer practice, soccer game, whatever you want to say,
Yeah.
is shown in his traditional calendar as 3 to 4 p.m. Innocuously sitting there, and you're like, you know what, that's pretty good. Like I could take that on. Even if it's something that's 3 to 4 p.m. and then something else is 4 to 5. And you're like, cool, I'll just magically, appear as you and
Right.
I are on this wonderful call, and then we'll go back to back as we all do, and then we'll
Yeah.
apologize we're running a couple minutes late. That those rules do not apply IRL. In real life, we
Yeah.
do travel to places. We do have to, take into effect that this time and distance has to be traversed. There is advanced preparation time for which one has to get ready, whether it's, gathering the things and of course yelling at your kids to get your stuff together and, get into the car and backing into essentially that commitment of 3 to 4 p.m. is especially pertinent for the sports parents because even more so beyond the travel is the early arrival that is
Oh,
often
right.
requested
Yeah.
by the coaches. And for us
Hmm.
swimmers in hockey, I know as well, and many other, examples of those in various other sports, up to an hour early is the expected arrival. Forget
Yep.
about early is on time as best practice, but that's like a requirement to
Right.
show up and be there. So that is time that's not represented anywhere within our traditional tools. And what happens with multiple kids, especially in the case of my home, was that now we've got unforeseen conflicts. We've got overlaps that are coming in out of the blue that previously we just were not planning for. And it feels angst-ridden. It feels reactionary. Now we're at a 10. We're like, oh shit, like where are we going? Where are you going? Where are you coming from? Now we're
Yeah.
triangulating, right? Coverage in a way that our tools did not equip or represent that time accurately. And so what we do uniquely within Orgo is we level up events to logistics. We emulate time the way you're actually going to spend it. We emulate life the way you actually live it. So 3 to 4 p.m., we're just going to come right back into that same math and we're going to back into that to say, I got to be there an hour early. It's going to take me 45 minutes to find some cockamamie field that I've never heard of before. Probably get to the wrong field at the right time, but we'll figure it out when we get there and then take, the first 15 minutes even before that to start getting, our stuff together and kind of prompting my kid to take that action. And oh, by the way, I still have to drive back. Now that's a case probably that's, most specific to a game, but for practice, when we're doing, practices 6, 7 times a week, is that now we've got drivers. Who's driving to? Who's
Right.
driving back from?
Yeah.
Who's staying at? Most times no one does because, they're in an age where we drop them off. And so now you've got this matrix scenario where you've got coverage, you've got people, you've got places, you've got time, you've got things, and I don't have any of the tools to give me what the actual clarity of that day entails. And more importantly, when change comes, because change is constant, how do I administer that change? Oh, that change lives in a team snap notification or a group me message or a text exchange or a WhatsApp group. And so our data is everywhere. And now that's another layer of anxiety because I'm like, well, I don't remember what is where. What shoe is about to drop? What am I missing? Right. And so that
Hmm.
level of paranoia is what kind of prompted me to be like, I want to be fully present. I want to be present in the shared experience that this is. We all signed up for the immense benefits that youth sports has to offer. I want to be at that game. I want to know what's next. I want to make sure I'm not, paranoid as to what shoes being dropped from the other foot, et cetera. And so that was yet another lens through which we were kind of thinking through the design with Orgo is how do we demonstrate the clarity and the confidence and externalize time as we are about to spend it in a way that can give, utmost clarity to who, what needs to be where.
Well, and it's you when you speak to it, it is a very complex
Yeah.
problem that exists for many families, and you're right in the middle of it, and I'm at the end of it.
Mm.
And when I hear you speak about it, I was like, oh, I want to be in the middle of it. I want to be right back there doing that
Yeah.
again and figuring
Yeah.
out those schedules. And there is just something about it once you hate it when you're in it, right? And those 5 a.m. drives to a baseball field. My son played baseball, and driving 2.5 hours to a tournament. It's pouring rain,
Yeah.
right? And wondering, is this going to be canceled? But I would give
You don't
anything
know
to
until you
do it
get there.
again. You won't know
Yeah.
until you get there, right? But I would do anything to be back in that situation again. It was such a magical time. But it's unfortunate that a lot of times it's stressful, right? And what you're trying to do is reduce that stress. One part of what you're doing is trying to reduce that stress for families and for busy sport families. I'm curious though, what was you're building tech, you're juggling home life as well, right? This is not an easy undertaking. I guess I have so many questions. What surprised you, I guess, along the way, like the biggest surprise you had building Orgo? That, something that, as we have people listening to this would be like, okay, I'm thinking about building something. I'm going to
Sure.
take that to heart.
Yep. No, I appreciate that opportunity to share a little bit more of the reality of kind of behind the scenes of what it
Yeah,
means
yeah,
to
exactly.
leave a corporate job really of 20 years. And I was very comfortable, I should say, within the track that I had chosen and, network that I had built and a
Hmm.
knowledge base that I've gained and a title that I've earned. All of those things were kind of, my insurance policy, so to speak, that one works for their entire
Yeah.
career. And I was like, okay, bye. Like, no, don't need that anymore. And then I'm going to do completely something different that I've never done before, aside from building tech specifically, which is kind of more within the wheelhouse. But everything else within the entrepreneurial journey has been brand new. So I do not act alone. First of all, big asterisks around I have a
Right.
team alongside me. We are a founding team of four. We divvy up our roles accordingly. We've got a CTO that's been hands-on keys, building the app and the experience as we see it. I've got a UX and product co-founder who is just the mastermind and kind of the visual and aesthetic, partner and thought partner to me. And then
Yeah.
we've got our backend engineer who's also helping to kind of bring the rest of the experience together. So this is a fully loaded team. And then I backfill on all things, although I'm technically a technical co-founder, but I'm not exercising my technical skill
Mm.
set in this current capacity. But I'm out here having conversations as these, lining up pipelines of partnerships and doing founder-led sales and having uncomfortable video selfies and things that I'm all of a sudden across, all the different channels, just priming the market, getting
Yeah.
inside
And
the
you do a
psychology.
really good job of that, telling the story and the
Thank you.
journey that you're going through.
And building in public has been like a big part
Yeah,
of
exactly. Yeah.
accountability of it
Uh,
all. I will
can you
say the
talk to that too? Why you decided to do that, build in public,
for
but
sure.
finish your
Day
first part.
one,
Yeah.
Day
Yeah.
one plus 1 hour, I literally have a timetable and a digital footprint of the entire journey that began May something or other
Uh-huh.
and in 2023. And so that was the time that I said, okay, I'm going to make a public announcement. I don't care who's on the receiving end of said announcement when, you kind of do your mandatory update of your role on LinkedIn. It's like,
Yeah.
congratulations, Zoya started.
Right, right,
Co-founder
right.
and CEO of Orgo that no one's ever heard of that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
That was like a major leap to it was an identity crisis that I was battling to like, well, who am I now? And what does this title even mean? It means nothing. I'm about to step into the unknown. The way that I felt was most accountable that can kind of keep me grounded along that journey is if I just start to share it along the way. It means that I will
Mm.
commit 3 times a week to describing and bringing people into the process in a way that makes me feel like I'm not alone. Aside from the team that I have beside me, they are still moonlighting. I am the only public
Ah, okay.
that's giving
Yeah.
life, breath, and vision
Mm.
to what we're building. So I want to invite people into it to make sure that I feel like we're doing it together. And I will benefit greatly from the expertise that I learn from others. And I will invite their diversity of thought. I will learn
Mm.
from their prior experiences and I will grow a brand new network, which effectively is what I needed to do. I will leave my financial services banking friends behind and I will now start to beckon the unknown waters of what it means to be a founder. Who are these investors? What is, sports tech? What is fam tech? What is pre-seed? All of those things are not,
Right, yeah,
in
the
the guidebook.
alphabet soup of right of
Yeah.
stuff. It's
Read
just
all the books,
right, yeah.
the
And then
hard
kick
hard things.
yourself because gosh, I wish I would have just read 10 more books on this that problem I'm having today, right? Yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
all of
But then
that.
the doing, right? The doing is really the big
Yeah.
lesson here. That as I kept doing and then sharing what was being done, there was always someone who was dropping in DMs or comments in a very constructive and helpful way that was like, well, I heard you shared this or you said that. You may want to consider
Mm,
XYZ. Next thing we know, we jump on an intro because I need to give time to those networking conversations.
yeah.
enriching my own understanding of what the thing I said is actually going to have an implication of something else, and I didn't know about that, or vice versa. So
Mm.
there's just been such a boon of wealth of information, both inbound and outbound, that I've been able to both receive and share by way of just being out there and building, bridges and connections that way.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to relationships, and yeah, and especially when you're building. And a lot of times, as the CEO and founder, you feel like you're on an island,
Mhm.
and you have your own problems with your own tech, but there's so many people in your same space. And that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast too, is you're not alone. We all go through it. We all go through the trials and the pain and the good times and, the
Yeah.
struggles of what it takes to build a company. Uh, so you created Orgo to solve, a problem that you were having.
Yes.
But in your research, as you're looking, okay, this is my problem. Is it unique to
Mm.
me? Okay, maybe, maybe not. What did you find that really shaped the what the development of Orgo in your research? What did you discover along that path? And how did you do the research?
Yeah, painstakingly, individually, one by one,
Yeah.
organically. I've got many terms to describe that, but the aha
Yeah.
moment that was initially asserted as a hypothesis, and I have yet to have anyone that I've spoken to, both founder side, investor side, partner side, parent side, that has refuted it in the following statement I'm about to make. And please,
Mm.
I welcome anyone who can challenge that because I learn otherwise. But my
Yeah.
observation is that in a $40 billion industry that is youth sports and only growing for various reasons that we may or may
Yeah.
not, agree or disagree on,
Yeah.
it is growing. And within that ecosystem, the parent is the most underserved, which is bananas because
Yeah.
we're
It's a
the
good point.
ones that
Yeah.
make this whole
Hmm.
merry-go-round go round. And I kind of
Hmm.
got
Hmm.
mad at that aha
Mm.
moment. And I was like, I want to be serviced. I want to feel like I have a system that is designed uniquely for the leg of the equation or the leg of the race that I'm on. Because when the coach tells
Hmm.
me, by way of like team snap, league apps, whatever the communication chain is, group me,
Right.
and like wear the purple uniform, show up at this field, be there 45 minutes early, bring snacks, see you there, field number X. I go, okay, well, the baton's been handed off to me, and now it's time for me to go and execute. The execution leg of the race is arguably most complex. I got to juggle calendars and schedules and conflicts unbeknownst
Hmm.
to said coach and said game. I need to be the one to orchestrate a world in which that is possible. And yes, in fact, do arrive at said time, at requested, early arrival, etc. So that portion of the equation is where complexity mostly lies. And the tools that I felt shorthanded by are the very ones that we're trying to augment for specifically the parents. So it is an opportunity lane for sure that we are building a piece of technology that will augment the existing ecosystem. It does not conflict with, it is not in direct competition with in any way. Anything the coach says to do, I want to do it. I want to just equip the families to have a better tool in hand to do that with. And then
Hmm.
the combination and the handshake, if you will, of them plus us equals the full end-to-end journey. That then means see you at the game, arrive there on time, players got the right mindset, they are prepared, they've got the stuff that they need, they are fed, they are of the proper mindset in terms of, they're fully present, et cetera. So like the orchestration of all of that is quite complicated.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I give you a lot of credit for taking on this problem. And we always hear this about, you have a $40 billion industry with lots of tech, with lots of just it's one of stakeholders, operators. There's a bunch of people in that whole mix, and you took a step back and say, well, let me carve out this piece, right, of this huge market opportunity. Not to say that the problem is small because it isn't, but we often, when we're thinking about solving a problem, you're solving it for the parent,
Yep.
and you make that argument as the most important piece to solve for because a lot of tech does spend on the coach and managing the team
Yes.
itself and for the coach to manage the team, right?
The
Um,
B. the B side of the equation, not the C.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what was your aha moment that you had when you're like, okay, this is more than just, a calendaring issue
Yeah.
or a problem that I have or a small group has. What was that aha moment when this idea is like, okay, this could be a viable business?
Yeah, for sure. So scale obviously is encouraging, problem set being universal, trajectory being, only increased over time. And so for us, it's just a matter of having been very, very focused. And so the
Mm,
double-sided point of being bootstrapped, which we have been for the last
yeah,
18, painstakingly so, is the fact that we don't have a luxury of building, and feature stuffing. So we've remained very focused on solving a problem that exists outside the home. We are following the breadcrumbs of the user of what happens when they leave the house or all the things that need to precede in order
hmm
for the journey to initiate and ultimately end with success. And so that's a universal journey that many of us are on. And once we started to bring about this experience that is described as prep time, travel time to early arrival, travel time back, and carpool drivers, and then starts to notify you
yeah.
every step of the way, it's kind of like the ways of your day. Once it's all pre-programmed, you're like, go left, go right. For us, it's time to start preparing. It's time to start driving. You arrived early, requested. There's been a change. A driver's been, reassigned, et cetera. So like that's a rinse and repeat model that we put into market first. And then people started to respond to that and react to it to be like, I think about the day differently. I visualize it differently. I'm being cued to redirect attention from the previous task that I was on. And now I am proactively thinking about what's next as opposed to being reactive to what's about to happen or already occurred. My stress is lowered, my anxiety is lessened. And then, most delightfully, we have learned and continue to that there is a child aspect to this experience. So much of it,
Yeah.
of course, focused on the parent, but the part that really encourages me most to keep not only developing, but also even personalizing and maybe even bifurcating the experience at some point, that this is a multi-generational platform. We've got parents and grandparents on there as well, yes, but
Yeah.
we've got athlete him or herself, evidenced by my own three kids. So my 14-year-old, who's a Momo teenager, right, who's got like digital coma all day, although she's a high performing athlete, nonetheless, she is a teenager. But she gets a notification that says it's time to start preparing. She's got a context switch. She's got to now redirect her attention and start to execute toward her commitment and back into a timely arrival, exit, etc. My 6-year-old gets a notification. It's time to start preparing for swimming. She now starts to go get her bag together for swim. She then appears at the door ready to be picked up by a carpool. That's an
What? You
I kid
solved
you
that
not.
problem?
I kid you not. And my kids are not special. They just have information in their hands that is able to inform them and have the data, as we all need as humans, to be able to figure out what my next steps are and how do I need to be successful within this particular subtask of like, just be at the door ready with your backpack when Lucy's mom pulls up into the driveway, and then the rest of, the journey can continue as scheduled.
Yeah.
There's no stress around that. There's just facts. Like, that's what I need to do. She's learned that at 6 years old. So, executive skills, time literacy, own your day, however you want to say it. That's like a different side of the value proposition that I am equally, if not more, passionate about when it comes to this, potential solution.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing that you have really put that as part of of the equation because that's a life skill that sports
It is.
is supposed to teach us, right? And I think uh, something we preach a lot about on Coaching Youth Hoops podcast and some of the other podcasts we do. Um, Kids need to learn those skills and support, and we're getting away from the correlation between life skills and sports.
Mm.
And if you think about what sport in school, the reason why it started as a lesson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's becoming a business, and kids they're not business people. They're still kids. They still play sports for fun. But if we do it right, we still can teach them the lessons that sports is supposed to do. Anyway, so yeah, that is such a admirable piece that often gets looked at
It's implied, but it's not,
Yeah, exactly.
explicitly
Yeah.
cared
I'm
for in
glad you're,
any way.
yeah, yeah.
No,
So, okay, you talked about, or you recently raised pre-seed
sure.
money. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
first off, define pre-seed. What
Oh,
is that? What's the
yeah.
difference between pre-seed and seed money? And then talk about your journey to that point. Now, you mentioned it was a 7th month journey. I actually would make the argument after speaking with you it's been a career-long journey to get to that
Mm.
point from the lessons you learned and the financial background that you have in building tech, making mistakes, at your company, having successes, learning, right? And to get to this point, sometimes that journey is shorter, sometimes it's longer, sometimes, sometimes we don't learn, right, fast enough. So, but okay, pre-seed, what does that mean? What's the difference, for our listeners?
Yeah, some of all those parts for sure, but specifically for the fundraising chapter that we
Hmm.
were, taking on. Firstly, again, we've been bootstrapped, so we put product over pitch, as I like to say, that when we
Hmm.
assembled a team of doers, it was not a matter of like, gosh, who's got the deepest reach into which network so we can like spin up a pitch and, kind of go after
Mm,
capital. Because at
yeah.
that point, even in April of 23, that already changed. The trajectory was different, the vibe and the feel, within like the economic state at large, like it just
Yeah.
was different. So we were like, we're just going to assemble a team that's able to start to do the doing. And so we did. And then we pushed ourselves as far as we not only could go, but should go in terms of, click-clacking this potential outcome together and really wanted to affect and impact the acceleration of that in a more financially driven way. So that's when we started to become open to outside capital. In full earnest, we became open to such capital in the summer of last year. So we spun up a beautiful deck. We had a product in market. We had encouraging traction. I went hard on LinkedIn, pounding pavement all day, like events, networking, you name it, we did it. And probably in some had over 250 conversations, for sure, if not closer to three
Wow.
and fine-tuning the pitch each
Yeah.
time revising the deck, the narrative, the financial model. We're raising too much, we're raising too little. We need more traction, we need this. But the power of being bootstrapped is
Yeah.
one where we were concurrent. So I'm on this, battlefield every day with investor conversations, but early in the morning when we do our stand-ups as a team, we're paralleling making sure that we're progressing the product, that we're designing the experience, we're talking to our users. So we were on this parallel path. And had we not been on that path and frozen the development, locked it up in the funds that otherwise most teams need to keep going, we
Yeah.
would not have continued. We would have been dead in the water, been like, well, we couldn't raise in 6 months. So guess it didn't work out. Instead, we kept going, kept relationship building, all of that. So the way that we ultimately closed this particular round is not through your traditional pre-seed funds, the very ones that are like, first check in, we love, pre-idea, you dream it, we fund it. Like that doesn't exist in my current experience. Please prove me wrong. In fact, I would venture a statement to be like, is pre-seed dead? Question mark. Because every conversation that I've encountered was one that was very metrically led. It was
Hmm.
financially driven in terms of revenue. Well,
Yeah.
what's your
Yeah.
MRR? What's your ARR?
Exactly.
Like we're like, guys, like we brought an amazing product to market to start. Like, is it commercial grade yet? No, but we've got some premise and some promise. Like, let's all work together to get to the next phase. Yeah, so everyone that we've spoken to is like MRR, ARR, metrics, call us
Yeah.
back, put us on the distribution. I said, okay. So we had our signal. And so now by the time we went to raise pre-seed, which again, it's just descriptive of a phase that we're not,
Right.
that we're in. It's not a matter of like, oh, we worked with pre-seed institutional funds. That's not the case. It's friends and
Yeah.
family. That's the most appropriate, avenue to capital for us now. And yes, it's a little bit through the personal network. It's also through some angel groups that we've been relationship building over time. And we were able to
Hmm.
demonstrate a clear line of sight into our next milestones, our outcomes, our use of funds, like our financial model was sound, our data room was stacked. So all of that preparation that's still applicable to, more of an institutional round is what we were able to demonstrate as part of this one. And so now we're on our path toward accelerating toward those milestones, and then we'll get to see thereafter. So that's been our journey.
Can you explain what, because you had mentioned in a LinkedIn post that you had right investors, wrong pitch, which is, yeah, I've been there, right? And
Yeah.
I've been through the frustration of you go, you visit those 250, investors and they all contradict one another. Oh, you need this. No, you don't need that, but you need this. No. And then it's just like, okay, I don't even know what to do anymore as far as what I'm supposed to do,
Yeah.
right? The best one though, what I should have done, hindsight is 2020, what I would do today, guy was eating oatmeal and on his phone most of the time during her pitch. And what I should have done was, you were the one who scheduled the meeting during that time, right? And you accepted the meeting invite. Like, should have just closed up the laptop, walked out the door, and said, or, gonna reschedule, right?
Yeah.
Or do we need to reschedule this meeting? Do you have, 15 minutes that you can put your oatmeal down and stay off your phone,
Make
right?
this a priority. Thanks.
And to this day, every time I see his face on LinkedIn, guess what? I think about the oatmeal and the rudeness, right? And
Reputational risk at
reputation,
play.
he doesn't care, right? He's worth more than I am, but still, it's just like, come on, bud. Anyway, uh, I have more stories like that I could share about
Lots of
going through
stories from the
investing.
crypt, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
But
Yeah.
okay, so what was it though that finally was their aha moment that you did in your pitch and over that 7 months of reflection and in iteration?
Yeah, it's the post is a bit of a it's meant to be a bit of a misnomer, and like the headline being wrong story to the right investors. Firstly, the right audience is everything. So I start there. I did my
Hmm.
due diligence. I looked into everybody that we were pitching to make sure that they are in line with the thesis, that they're in sports tech, fam tech, consumer,
Mm-hmm.
early stage, right? So we kind of like weeded out that particular audience. So at least like check the box on that. The big X came in, and this is like a hindsight learning as well, and one that we thankfully were able to pivot on along the way, is
Yeah.
where we realization that the story that we were telling was beautiful. It's not in a way that you would think. The narrative was just tight. It's got personal why. You'll hear me weaving tales of woe of technology, 20 years financial
Right. Yeah.
services, certain sports parent, right? Like
Yeah.
all of that makes sense, except
Right.
the structure of the narrative was unbalanced. 60% of it was leading up through the problem, the solution, and the product, which
Hmm.
frankly don't care. But the 30%, if not even less, was all about the what now. The go to market was not detailed. The financial
Mm.
model was like in the appendix. The outcomes were nebulous. So that's the aha moment, is that it wasn't a financially led narrative. It was a problem and solution and product led one, which again, to an audience of partners, that's cool. They want to, relate to the product and understand what you're building and why and what problem you're solving. But ultimately, when you're pitching investors, is how are you going to make money? How is your
Mm.
business model going to
Yeah.
bring returns that are in line with their underwriting criteria, which to your point varies, right? Because you're going to talk to this
Right.
one a little
Yeah.
bit soft on that edge, but they don't care about the other. So
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
understanding how to kind of design into a financially led conversation was the pivot that we made. And then the financial model had become not a screenshot, not an appendix, but
Yeah.
a mechanism through which storytelling was told.
Hmm.
And we said, we're building X to achieve Y, which is going to yield Z. We retrofitted and defended those statements by way of, yes, the financial model and the milestones that we're going to hit, and why we feel convicted that we're going to hit them, and what we've done to prime the market, and the avenues that we've already pursued that de-risk this particular aspect of the equation. And that's
Hmm.
really kind of how we started to push through to the other side, is to say we've done the work. And yes, product is a big part of it, but more beyond that is this is a business. It's not, just to launch a pretty app and call it that complete. It's to
Right.
really put it onto a path of scale, obviously revenue, partnerships, scalability, all of that stuff. So that was kind of the bigger aha moment, is that the financially led narrative and the rebalancing
Okay.
of the structure of that story is one that is most appropriate for the audience that we were serving it up to.
And would you make the argument that uh, when you led with the financial model, then they were open to, okay, I'll listen to the story now. And I'm
Yeah.
generalizing, but you hear what I'm saying? It's like,
Hmm.
okay, is there an opportunity here or not? Okay, then we'll listen to your pretty story on the back end. You know
Yeah,
what I
like
mean?
the best we can. So that's a great
Yeah.
question, because the way that I tested for that is when I would do my
Hmm.
LinkedIn outreach. And my A/B testing is that I would include different portions of my hook as part of the connection request. And I would say, hey, I'm Zoya Lehrer. I left FinTech for sports tech 20 years, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then I like for a while during that product era, I would lead with, hey, we're designing into sports tech, we're solving this problem, et cetera. Hey, do you want to connect and jump on the call? Which, was enough to compel them to do so early on. And it was enough to bring them into the conversation. But it was time to convert and ultimately hook based on a different narrative, which again, being
Hmm.
financial. I led with that as part of the connection request. And I said, hey, same thing. Hey, Zoya left FinTech, did sports tech. Now, and of course, added, the website just to kind of give some context as to what we're building and why. But then I said, we're raising X to achieve Y to yield Z. We're at this
Mm.
stage or we have this much of, the round covered, et cetera. It was a different conversation. So now I've primed them and managed their expectations and maybe work through that initial part of the angst and curiosity of like, well, what stage are they in? What are they doing? What is she asking for? How do I come in? Where do I
Mm.
see myself in this equation? Does this equation even make sense for me? I
Yeah.
already served that up front. So I think the conversion rate of those connection requests were higher simply on that. But again, that's not who we raised from. We raised from the pre-existing relationships and existing, network of prior colleagues, friends and family, and angel groups. But it's good practice when seed comes
That's right. Yeah.
know what works. And so that is a lesson learned for sure.
Yeah. No, that's I think that's a valuable lesson. And yeah, I mean you nailed it, right? It took you, 250 tries, but that's what it does a lot of
It
times,
does.
right?
And you can be mad at it. Like, don't be
No.
mad at it. That's the
Yeah.
process. Respect the process, do
That's
the work,
right.
iterate,
Yeah.
revise. Someone gives you some feedback, use it. If you think it's applicable to you, obviously, best sense, judgment, etc. But like, listen to it, iterate on it, try it again, test something different, put yourself out there. And the only bit, like the biggest lesson learned out of all of this that I would take away that's like the common denominator throughout that whole journey is zero ego hero. Like hashtag me. Zero ego. It's not personal. It's not
Mm.
you. It's not even them. It's got to be the model. It's got to be the business. It's got to be the story.
Right.
It's got to be the narrative.
Oh
Whatever
my
it is,
gosh.
it's
Yeah.
just not you. So don't make it
Yeah.
personal. Move on to the next. It's a numbers game. The more you talk to, the more you learn, more you'll revise and just pivot and, kind of reload, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because that's really important. It's not you, right? A lot of times those discussions are numbers driven and or, in my case, an example I gave, the guy was hungry, right? And just wasn't the right time, right?
Right.
Um, okay, so let's talk about scaling. And
Mm.
when you think about scaling your products, so you got pre-seed, you have approximately, you don't have to give the exact number if you're not comfortable with it, like the exact number of people using it. It's in the marketplace. I could download it.
Please.
So yeah, yeah, please. You got some people using it, so they're giving you initial feedback on that.
Yes.
Um, when do you think about scaling? Because scaling, we all want to scale tomorrow, but we had talked about, well, it's not always, we're not ready to scale, right?
Yeah.
What's that fine balance of just like, I'm so eager to get this into more hands, but yet I got to hold back because, our servers may go down if we got too big too quickly, right? All
Yeah.
those considerations you go through.
This is my love language. What you just touched on in terms
Hmm.
of the balance between the desire to put it out there, the anxiety surrounding what will be the feedback, will it land, will it break, what else
Yeah.
lies therein, right? Like all of that is kind of where we're coming up to. Except we've been very intentional about launching and marketing. And because we're bootstrapped, I have no marketing budget. So I can only reach as far as the algorithm will allow it. And there's only as many, flyers as we can distribute, which we do in parking lots at
Yeah, I
tournaments that
saw that. It's
it's
awesome.
real
Yeah.
guerrilla
Yeah.
out here as far as marketing efforts. So with that inevitable pace and constraint, we've had to right size the level of exposure to the product to the stage of the product readiness. And the way that we've been gauging readiness is by way of obviously interviewing our users and being very, very close to that feedback and ourselves being users of it. So I am super user number one. My family, you saw for me, again, that's why the origin story makes sense. You
Yeah.
saw for me, I've got a complicated day. Like I see where the holes are. I see where the opportunities lie. I see what it means to build habits in the day. And when something is, a vitamin versus a painkiller versus something that like I really can't live without, we're not there yet. But are we scratching at a real problem? Are we tackling it differently? Are we giving value in a way that starts to encourage additional, curiosity to kind of either
Right.
stay with
Yeah.
us or be affected later on? Absolutely. So we've got a major release coming up at the end of March, slash beginning of April that has a bunch of partnership activation and marketing locked up behind it. And as much as I would love to open up the floodgates already and been wanting to for quite some time, I just know that the product is awaiting some of these leaps that we're taking
Hmm.
as this release. It's not a full on, you know, fully loaded experience, but it's enough to know that of the unanimous feedback that we've received from the users that we do currently have and prospective ones that we're trying to acquire, they're going to want XYZ. So let's deliver XYZ. Let's now open up the floodgates to more. Let's see how they respond net new. We'll continue to build out the value chain that we're, maniacally focused on delivering along the way. But this is the first pocket that I believe we're in where this initial wave of marketing makes sense. And so we've
Mm-hmm.
got partners that we're bringing in from nonprofit organizations who are working with various youth sporting groups. I'm very passionate about that. I mean, extremely passionate about that. We have creators from Instagram that are reaching this audience with whom I've been building a relationship, not through paid marketing, but through true mission aligned kind of vision that we see the reciprocity of each other's messaging versus the tooling that this is and the utility that it could be and the value that it could potentially, lend to it. So it's been timed and very tempered. And I think that that's good. It's control, it's being realistic, it's also being self-aware, like where we are is not where I'd like us to be. And so let's kind of continue giving us, more and more value along the way, but not think that we're ready for prime time quite yet. But we're on our way.
You're on your way. And I'm assuming that's kind of mapped out. You map that out, best case scenario, you can, it looks good on paper, right? But when you get there, you'll see, but you
We'll
have
see.
it mapped. Yeah.
I do.
I want to dig into the balancing act that you do as a parent, right? As a founder, um, of a company, brand new, started from scratch, right? What has what in your family dynamics has changed, and maybe what tools do you use now also to manage, and the boundaries you put as a founder and CEO around the company, so so you're still you're still have a connection with your family and your husband, right?
Yeah.
'Cause I think that isn't discussed enough, right? When it doesn't matter if it's male or female, who I'm talking to, remaining connected to the family, because it's hard, right? You're doing all of the outreach, you're balancing all of these plates, right? No matter who you are when you're building a company. So I'd love
Yeah.
to, how do you handle that personally?
You used a dirty word, balance. You know it
There's no
doesn't exist.
balance. Yeah, you're
There
right.
is none.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
think one of the biggest misnomers that I was not disillusioned by any means, but it
Yeah.
seems like some may be when they're like, to be a founder, you'll have balance, you'll be able to do all these things, you'll take like ice baths at, 5 a.m. I mean,
Right.
you can and you should, but if you have a family, you won't. Like
Yeah.
life, you won't. And so that's
Yeah.
the reality. And, my husband's my biggest champion. And I will say that my kids are core and integral to the build out of the business, where they each have a role that they've served along the way. It's interesting, like the 14-year-old is a big cringe check. Like she's just like, don't do that video, do not post it. I don't want to see it. Like she's like my cringe check.
Yeah.
The 10-year-old is at the perfect age, especially last year when she was in third grade, to pass the third grade reader test, which means if our copy is overly complicated, if we're communicating in some jargon way,
I love
that's
that.
the third grader test, seriously. So
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
read all of our copy, marketing site, even in the deck, on our one pagers, any partnership agreements that would be, or rather material that would be going out. She would read through that. So check that as far as her role there. And then the 6-year-old, then even 5, would just be like, that's pretty. So she's the aesthetic checker, right? So
Yeah.
everybody's like
Yeah.
serving a role and they feel that this is theirs. But more seriously and importantly, my husband and I joke like this is a fourth baby
Yeah.
in many ways. It's all consuming. 16-hour days are no joke. It's a choice, and I choose to make that. That's my work ethic. That's how much I think a business that is coming off the ground requires to, kind of push it along, especially within our very unique dynamic of me being full time, the rest of the team still moonlighting, very much
Mm-hmm.
overcompensating for so much of kind of the other areas that surround the tech that I really want to bolster. And so there is no balance. It is all consuming. My social life is non-existent and health, kind of tries to be a priority. Like I'll try to sneak in a workout here and there. Maybe I'll have a meal. Um, uh, Cottage cheese is life. That was
Yeah.
like I posted this a while ago. It's like founder hack one of one. I only have one hack, and that is cottage cheese
Good
is growing
cheese.
down because of the protein. Like it
Yeah.
literally keeps me alive. So yeah, it's imbalanced, but I welcome it and I sign up for it and I'm not mad
Right.
at it. I invite it. They'll come a different phase, they'll come a different time. Many times I'm at my kids' meets and that they're, practices and my head is down and I'm either doing content, I'm engaging, or I'm writing my post, or I'm testing the app because we're mid-sprint. Like that's just the normal life that we have right now. And I'm at a round table if you could see it, but life physically revolves around me. Like in fast motion, right? Like if I were like set a video montage, like that's what it feels like. It's just kind of like spinning around and I'm just like here at the laptop, like talking all day.
Yeah.
It's
What
okay.
keeps you motivated on those bad days?
I've said that I have a good day and a bad day 25 times a day every day because it is that,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
Like
roller
great
coaster. Yeah.
conversation will be like, wow, this feels amazing. The next pitch or the next, discussion you have, you're like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool, cool. Like right back
Yeah.
on it. But then you come right back to the next, right? So the
Yes. Yes.
motivation is around the fact that by and large, this is a good thing that
Mhm.
we are welcomed into the space. We are solving a real problem that I feel most personally, again, within my day-to-day
Yeah.
life. And I see a clear vision for what it could be and grow up and through in terms of our vision. And, the rest just comes down to endurance. This is a sport.
Yeah.
It is a marathon. I hate to say it. It's like the biggest cliche, but this too in itself is a sport. So having the endurance to say, yesterday's practice wasn't great, tomorrow's will be better. But then by the time that, the following week comes around and the month thereafter, like it's all accretive, it comes down to endurance. So it's mental, a lot of
Mhm.
physical, emotional as well. It's a lot. It's a lot of, as ironic as it is, there's a lot of parallels
There's a
between
lot
tradition
of parallels.
and
Yeah.
real life. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually started, I was talking with my marketing director, and we were talking about a new series we're going to start writing about this, all the life lessons we learned through sports and how they apply to business. So you're going to start seeing
Very
some of that
analogous.
content. Yeah, yeah. So
Very
he's
analogous.
done a good job of drawing those correlations, and
Mhm.
hopefully it'll be a good series. Okay, so at your stage of where you're at right now, so it's very early stage. You have pre-seed. You got people using the product. It's a physical product made.
Yeah.
How do you think about KPIs? What are you tracking right now at the stage that you're in?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's users, obviously, in terms of downloads, but most importantly is we care if a user come in as a singular individual and then
Mm-hmm.
set up their crew. We call a crew the concept of, call it a
Yeah.
family plus or minus your caregiver, your kids as well as pets. So we've got pets in the app just to kind of recognize them as important entities in our lives. But if someone takes that action and sets up their crew, it's with intention, and we like that. Then we start to kind of monitor and check to see if they are creating events, because right now there's not a lot of import capabilities. That's one of the bigger
Mm,
we're
yeah.
making at the beginning of April is to integrate with Google Calendar, be able to bring in parity of those events and translate 3 to 4 p.m. to our logistics. And
Yeah.
so kind of the additional, and that's unanimous feedback, as you would imagine people are asking for. But because it's manual and because they're so intentional about being in there right now, we are seeing, well, are they creating their recurring events? Are they receiving notifications in a way that's guiding them? Are they uncovering conflicts that, again, uniquely within us, you're finally able to see where the overlaps truly lie. Like those are really encouraging factors for us. And of course, we're talking about them and talking to them all the time. So it's
Hmm.
both qualitative as well as quantitative analysis. And then our KPIs beyond that will grow into more of the virality and the network effect by way of additional features within the roadmap that we're going to build out. And that's going to be the true test. Like, are you talking to the parent right next to you on the sideline? Are you sharing with them that this is a tool that you now have within your toolkit that's allowed you to have, more control in your life, less stress? The athletes are benefiting accordingly. Like to us, that will be a much truer test when we graduate into that value chain.
Yeah, that's awesome. And last question here is, okay, so I'm listening to this. I am excited. You got me excited about doing a, tech
You're feeling the
startup.
pain, most
Yeah,
importantly.
feeling the pain. Exactly. Right. I want to do a sports tech startup. Give me your top three things that are going to make it a little bit smoother for me that you've really learned in your journey.
Sports tech, just again, as a newcomer. So I'm not here to be, you know, conveying sort of analysis that's educated just beyond my own experience. And now I'm part of Profluence community. Shout out to Profluence and Sports Business Leaders of Philly, which is kind of like this amazing community of sports tech founders through whom and with whom I am not only learning about the space, but also plan to grow in terms of partnerships as well. So learnings are NIL is really crowded and confusing. I'm confused by it. There's a lot of conversations around it. And I see a lot of newcomers kind of coming into the space wanting to affect that particular experience. So I'm fascinated by that particular space. A lot of concentration and focus, of course, on the team management aspect around youth sports specifically, but mostly tailored once again toward the leagues and the managers and the coaches. And I don't know if I have a third because I'm just like very maniacally focused on youth sports and specifically the parent
Yeah.
lens. And that's the area within which I foresee the most opportunity because again, we're not going away. We're an important part of this ecosystem.
Huge
We make
part.
the
Yeah.
whole thing go around. We fund it. We show up. We are asked to shut up in most cases, in the
Yeah.
circumstances. So yeah, it's very interesting, but a lot of consolidation in the space. I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
portfolio consolidation when it comes to PE. And I'm just fascinated by it, and I'm very intentional about being within it.
Okay, I lied. One last question. I want to learn, I want to know your lessons though. What are your lessons of, okay, hindsight is 2020,
Yeah.
right? What are, a few things again, words of wisdom you can pass on to the next tech startup founder that's listening to this right now to get them,
Relation
interesting.
relationships are everything. In the very
Mm.
beginning, and I even wrote about that again, documented journey.
Yeah.
Being in public, there was definitely a post that I can come back to where I said this. I forget what the shakeout of like the mix of the day in terms of hours were, but for a period of time, 70-30. 70% of my day and an elongated day at that was
Mm.
spent on conversations as you and I initially had. Networking, no particular agenda, but still kind of focused within, specific areas of synergies, whether it's fundraising or just general partnership build out in the space, et cetera.
Yeah.
And just getting a knowledge base, getting your bearings, because I don't care if you've been in a space for as long as you have and you're just continuing to build into it, there's something new to be learned. And especially in my case, I was completely coming in brand new, both to process and to a brand new ecosystem from a tech standpoint. So there was a lot of learning to be had. And so being really self-aware and being open to spending the time and investing in that upfront part of the journey and continually along the way, just, right sizing the equation to make sure that we kind of give time in the day to other things as well as appropriate, but not underestimating relationships, which again is like such an obvious statement. But the fact that it takes conversations as these is the most, I believe, important part of the early journey.
Well, and you came from a completely different industry. So you didn't have relationships
None,
or very yeah, in the kind of the sports tech
not one.
area, right? And probably may not have some investors, but again, you had you started from zero, near zero on that. That's
Yeah.
from what, and I think that's what I understood from what you said
Yep.
earlier, right?
And you're
So
right. 100%.
yeah, yeah. No, that's a really good. I think that's really important. You can't underestimate the power of the relationships. Any last words that you want to share with the audience before we end this?
Yeah, I appreciate that opportunity. I like to say that we're friend, not foe. So coming in as a newcomer, it's always kind of just being cognizant about the fact that pre-existing solutions, relationships, partnerships exist. We're coming in to augment, in many ways, not only a white space, but also service a very important part of the journey. And so I want to do that intentionally through the power of, again, relationships and being very passionate about sports tech overall and just kind of the overall journey of the sports parent and the athletes and the shared experience and the joy, the lovely memories that you were just kind of reciting
Yeah.
and fondly looking back on. Those are all the things that we just want to improve and make sure that we're building systems to bolster that throughout the years.
And where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm painfully visible on LinkedIn. So find me on Zoya Lehrer, Lehrer on LinkedIn. We're also on Instagram as Orgo app and Zoya Lehrer as well there, and on our website, orgohq.com. And we're also in both app stores. But the latest and greatest version, of course, is in iOS because that's kind of where we're designing into first, and we'll retrofit so much of our current capability into Android. So orgohq.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Zoya, for your time. This has been extremely helpful, and I know our listeners will definitely grab more than just one nugget out of this and shape themselves moving forward. So really appreciate your time for being on the show and look forward to seeing your growth and the app on every sports parent's phone as it should be. So
Appreciate that, Bill. I appreciate the opportunity. This was fun.
awesome. All right, till next time. This is Bill Flitter checking out with You Sports Insider.